feels like it's moving faster than we can catch our breath. We chase deadlines, outcomes, and answers, yet forget that some of life's most profound shifts happen in the quiet, in the pauses, in the space between effort and reward. Welcome back, listeners, to the Mindful Living Podcast with your host, Sana. And for today's episode, we are going to dive deep into a space which is about mindfulness, not just as a buzzword, but as a lived experience, and patience, not as a passive waiting, but as an active, conscious choice. And our guest knows this journey deeply. She's worn more hats than most people wear in a lifetime. From working in restaurants to consulting in mergers and acquisitions, from teaching school to supporting wounded veterans, from navigating marriage and motherhood to overcoming personal health challenges. Her life has been a living classroom of resilience and spiritual alignment. And for almost a decade, she's been coaching others to elevate and lighten up their lives, helping them connect to their higher selves and embrace their sacred journeys. So, listeners, this isn't about the quick fixes or surface level affirmations. It's about tuning in, slowing down, and learning how to trust the process even when the outcome isn't clear. So, let's take a collective breath and begin. Listeners, let's welcome Samantha Kane. Yeah, welcome to this show, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Now many people think mindfulness means sitting quiet or still in meditation. It's like, slowing down uh and just in stillness. So like moving away from everything and just slowing down. But in your own journey, how do you bring mindfulness into everyday life, like especially on the days when everything feels chaotic for you?
That's a great question. Thank you. So, really, I try to always put the focus back to myself. When I feel a chaotic moment, I turn it inward. And
Mm.
I think a lot of people placate these specific moments. They just continue. And if you are not pausing to notice the moment that you're in and accepting that the negativity that you're feeling or an uncomfortability is good enough or okay or it's just the way it is, then
Mm.
you're not allowing a deeper space for anything else to arrive. And there's a lot of fast talkers. I used to be like that. I used to live my life very, very fast paced and everything. It was, you're fast talking, you're getting mad when other people are speaking too slowly and breathing through their words because you want every conversation to go fast because that's how you're doing it. And you're not
Yeah.
realizing maybe that's not how the world works. Maybe it's not always so fast. Maybe it's not always only your way when you're being fast. And
Mhm.
if you don't have realization about who you're being in these moments, then you're not going to learn and grow in a positive way where you're going to really bring more alignment into your life and live it in a happier, more peaceful way.
Yeah, definitely. And I couldn't agree more with you, Samantha, because um I don't know, there are so many misconceptions around this that, um those who are super ambitious, super successful, they are always, hustling throughout the day and night. I mean, it's just kind of, I don't know, celebrated maybe. And those who are a bit, slow, they're aware of, okay, what I'm going to eat, what I'm eating. This is I'm doing through the day. These are my thoughts. Um, they they are kind of, they're kind of aloof, very kind of separate. Why do you think there's this kind of misconception? If if I am right.
Um, this is a brilliant question. It's because, in my opinion, I don't feel like people want to stop and feel. They don't want to feel their feelings. They don't want to visit the spaces of their life that are uncomfortable, that have happened to them that they're just not happy with, ways that they've been, things that they've said, things that they've
Mm.
done. It's it's just not a good place to want to visit. But
Yeah.
problem with that is now you're just ignoring these issues and they build up like a snowball, and they're
Mm.
always in the behind the scenes. So you don't, by avoiding something, you don't evade it in your life. It integrates in different ways and it becomes very, very problematic. It shows up in other ways in your life because there's always a cosmic nudge telling
Mm.
you this isn't the way, this isn't how you're supposed to feel. And so one can be extremely successful, extremely busy, extremely productive, and it might look grand on the outside, but on the inside, there's something very hurting to come out. And when we don't pay attention to these moments and we don't bring in a mindful moment here and there as a
Mm.
practice, just simply by noticing these, like, giving ourselves a break and
Mhm.
just noticing it when we are go, 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 we're doing a massive disservice to our soul. We're it's like, I don't wanna say you're running with the devil, but it's like you're running with ego instead of allowing an insertion of spirituality and soulfulness to your life. And a big problem is that so many people speak soul language, but
Mhm.
more for show
Yeah.
than for living. And they're not embodying it. And that's a big problem for their own life, not for anybody else, because it's not you're not necessarily, I mean, you can hurt other people externally if it is something that they're buying a service from you. Like, let's say if I was a life coach that practiced in this manner, if I didn't practice what I preach, that would be problematic. Um,
Okay.
and I'm not someone that does that. I'm the opposite. I do all the work myself. But so for anyone, if you're living like this and you're just so fast paced that you're not stopping, that's why there's that expression, stop to smell the roses. And
Mm.
it's really so true. It's bringing the senses in and not just looking on an app on your phone. Ooh, what's the weather going to be today? Okay, and then you dress accordingly and you act accordingly. But are you stopping to feel the air outside, to feel the sun on your skin, to smell the scents when you're walking on the street, to really see with your eyes in a different way? When we don't live like that, then we have our head down and we are missing out on so many grandiose opportunities out there. We're missing
Mhm.
the mark. We're missing the mark to meet ourselves in all these downloads that we can receive from the universe. The universe is always talking to us, and if we're going to bypass all of the beauty of it, then we're going to miss really important messages in our lives.
Oh my goodness, you brought up so many brilliant points in here, Samantha. First of all, um, I mean, I shouldn't use the word, but it's kind of a hypocrisy if you're not um, practicing what you're preaching. I'm a very, very firm believer in that. I mean, if you are not practicing it, then you don't have the right to even preach it.
Yes.
It doesn't work, and it kind of feels off. And also, uh, another point that you mentioned, and I had a very um, detailed conversation on this, specifically the cosmic, the universe, the nudges from our universe. I mean, uh, often we brush it off them as, coincidences. But these signs and these symbols could be nature, could be our pet animals, could be, non-living things as well. They have so many, hidden messages. It's just that we need that amount of clarity and at least that amount of stillness, that kind of restraint to understand those messages.
Yes, and it's also so difficult to decode messages in general. So if we're so far away from being in touch with that whole realm, then
Mhm.
we're even further away from getting any of it. And it's not getting, it's a gift. So I don't mean like it's you're getting it, but I mean it really is a gift that you're missing out on. So it's again, it's a disservice to yourself to not tap into the beauty of, like you say, nature and your pets and all these wonderful things around us all the time. We live in this plug and play system where we wake up very quickly, we go to work, we uh, scarf food down our mouths unconsciously, and we don't behave in ways that align with the sense of wonderment about life. We come home from work and then we want to be entertained and the television is on, or you got your phone attached to your hand, the new age computer. I mean,
Yeah.
might as well have it sewn into our hands at this point. But it's it's a travesty to do to ourselves to not allow the awakening to occur, because there's an invitation and everyone's invited to this party. And if they're not going to RSVP yes, then there's so much no happening that it's not as fun. It's really not as fun. I mean, from personal experience, like you asked in your first question, where, how it looked in my life and how it's translated is I've experienced all sides of it. At this point, I'm old enough, I can wholeheartedly say that. I've done all the wrong things or the worst things, and I've also done all the great things and the best things because I've allowed myself to experiment through every pocket and every phase of my life and not be afraid and live in fear of the unknown. I've made bold choices where I had no idea what my footing was going to look like on the other side. And I really went into things where, I just kind of dove head first and wasn't really sure. But in that, even in the times that I went really fast in my life, in the pacing, I still had my sense of wonderment in check because I'm just innately a spiritually aligned person and a spiritually curious person, because
Mhm.
I've always felt very strongly that I'm not alone in this and that I'm coexisting with the universe, and that even in times I don't really understand what's going on, or I don't know what's set before me. I don't know the next steps to take. I'm unsure of my footing. I'm unsure of myself. Maybe I'm in an insecure moment, like we all have. All of these variables where we are uncertain and we're not so clear, it's easier to be in that when you're more fast paced, because if you're not paying attention to the messages and the intuition, then you're missing out on affirmation as well. It's not necessarily only messages. It's messages and also affirmation that you are on the right path or you are not. And that's a big part of it too, because we all want some sense of confirmation that, okay, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, or this is exactly how I was supposed to approach this thing. So if we're not listening to ourselves along the way and we're very much giving our freedom away by, maybe we're a people pleaser and we just allow other people to tell us what to do and tell us what to watch. And, we want to be exactly like our friends. And then you lose your unique power. You lose all of that. So if you want to be in more of a winning space of your life, and it's not like you're winning a game or anything, but it's winning for yourself because it's not about anybody else. It's about how you want to feel in your life, not how you want to present your life to look like to others. And too many people in this world in the modern era have tapped so hard into ego and into what this looks like to others rather than how does it feel for myself, that that's another big part of why we're so fast paced and we're not allowing thought into it, and then now add like chat GPT or any of these other things where we're just not thinking for ourselves as much. I mean, that's only going to get worse. So this is like a massive awakening and call out to people, to like all of humanity actually, to really listen to yourself more and tap into your spiritual side deeper, because the growth is where it's at. The growth is where you have better foundation, deeper roots, and you're more in alignment with embodying who you are truly as opposed to who people are telling you to be, and taking breath more intentionally and following yourself more than following, what society tells you to do, or even your boss. You have to have this report done by the okay, that's fine. Maybe you have deadlines. Maybe you do have a timing and a pacing that aren't very easy and that are challenging. That's okay. But how are you doing it isn't necessarily as important as who you are being in these moments.
Mm, that's very well put, Samantha. And
It
yeah, and I just want to bring in a bit of a different, this kind of uh, suddenly came in my mind. Do you believe the conversations around mindfulness or patience, or for the fact understanding all these universe nudges, because you have been into different industries, you have seen so many different worlds, both on the personal and professional fronts. Do you think these discussions are relevant in from a feminine perspective than a masculine one?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Uh, I don't know if it's I mean, my first thought here is I don't think it's necessarily a gender-based identity to wrap around, even though we do have differing roles, mother versus father versus, but here's the thing. I mean, I look at it from a human standpoint. The only difference might be is physically attached to the mentally and the emotionally is hormonal stages in our lives where women might vary a little bit and need to decompress in a different way, or maybe perhaps a more mindful way, especially if you're a mother, if you have postpartum, if you had a traumatic birth, if you had, but then again, we can go the other way and we can say, well, a male can still have, difficulty in life. The consensus, I mean, we could go back and forth like a ping pong match here, playing with gender, but really, in reality, I don't think we need to pocket any of these. variations of people. I think it just comes down to human. I think it comes down to who we're being when we're human, and making sure that we know ourselves so well that we continue a consistent, intentional practice as much as possible so that we can bring peace into our lives. And so we know the difference between when we're not being our best self, which is okay, because that's what we need. We need to bring in the shadow. And so we can understand and really feel even deeper gratitude for the light. However, it's so, so important to just know ourselves. And so it doesn't really matter what you go through because even, if we had 1,000 people lined up, half of them male, half of them female, or whatever the number count was, every person is going to have a unique perspective, a unique experience, and everyone, without saying, is going to have multiple challenges through their life. So
True.
it is a personal experience or like will to want to be in this state of play. I like to call it more than work. It's like a personal choice how deep you want to go or if you want to even go at all. I think a lot of people just go so unconsciously through their life. It's like all of a sudden, let's say they're 43 or whatever age they are, and they're like, oh, how did I even get here? I don't even remember my thought process through that. Or why am I in this space? Or why did I marry that person? Or why am I in this job? Or why am I living in this place? And we just do it. And it's like we're these drone beings. If you don't have the mindfulness paired with your choices and your thoughts and your actions, then it's not going to be as soft and as aligned as you would want it to be. So, regardless of gender, regardless of your age, even in my young daughter who's only 6, I've been teaching her about mindfulness and about meditation and about who she's being as soon as she could speak, we were talking about all these things, and um, I was showing her by being that myself because that's who I am, and so she
Mm.
would see and follow me, and then but not follow me, follow what I was doing, but then twist it with her own way, and do it in a way that means something to her, or, uh, she would just add her own flair and her own style and do it in her own way. So it's never, even in my coaching practice, it's never telling so much about what you do and whatever career you're in or whatever you're trying to translate to people. It's never about telling people, it's about showing people who you are yourself, but in a way that's not, for entertainment purposes. It's like, this is the light being that I am, and this is the message that I choose to share. And if it sparks joy, if it sparks inspiration in you, then I invite you to have relation with me, whether you know me or not personally, but to be in this space and to live here together because we're all on this earth together. This is all we know. So we might live in different households and we might have different practices, and some of us might journal, and some of us have never touch a pen anymore since we've had a phone now. Everything goes into notes or a computer. We all do things, a little bit different, and that's okay. But it is important to find your own way and what works for you and to experiment with that and stay open as much as humanly possible in a heart expansive place so that you can really live. And it's such a cheesy saying sometimes when we say this, but living your best life. It's it's thriving, it's not just in survival mode where you forget to breathe. It's just bringing a state of awareness to yourself that you can do it day in and day out. And as you practice it, the more you do, it just gets not necessarily easier in
Mhm.
itself, but it gets easier to snap into, if that makes sense.
Definitely, definitely. And Samantha, before we wrap, of course, I mean, from my childhood, I have been confused between these two proverbs: "Look before you leap," and "A stitch in time saves nine." I mean, these are kind of very two contradicting proverbs. Whenever we talk about patience, I mean, how do we distinguish between being patient and staying stuck in a situation longer than we should?
Well, I would say that we have to be stuck so many times because there are only certain moments in life that we're going to awaken to the fact, paired with action, that we're going to pull ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
And if people think that, if they have this struggle and they are caught in a loop and they think this massive awakening has to happen, or they need to hire 5 different, therapists, coaches, or whatever you wanna do, and have someone's help and hold their hand so much, like, that's not gonna work necessarily. It's gotta be on your own time, in your own way. I say this all the time. It's gotta be in your own time, in your own way, on your own pace, and the timing is always divine timing. There's just a way. Some people that have had very terrible things happen to them, might not agree about this statement in that moment, but when you get retrospect, you may. There's always a higher perspective to everything that happens to us because it's always happening for us, and there's always a lesson in everything, even the worst things. But the patience comes in when we finally get so sick of ourselves that we decide to take different action instead of in the loop of the same actions we've repetitively been annoying ourselves with. And when we take this different action, and when we are consistent, and when we mean it, and we stay in this mode of, I'm so sick of doing this to myself, I'm just gonna yank myself out. And we, with all our willpower and all our might, we do. That's when the change happens, and that's when we start to learn to have patience with ourselves. But we we really do intrinsically place so much impatience when we're in the loop, and that's only because we've just been in this narrow-minded view, very closed off of, I'm not ready yet, like breaking up with someone in a relationship or, um, and but it's okay because sometimes what you might look at someone else's life and think, "My goodness, it's taken them years to even notice that this is happening to them, and they've been so unhappy," where it may have taken you months, right? But that's not your journey, and that's not something that we should judge. So again, everybody in their own time, own pace, own way, and we will all learn the lessons eventually and eventually also have patience.
Fully said, Samantha. I think that's such an important distinction. Re so before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what would be the best way?
Oh, sure. Thank you. I'm on my website. You can find me rootswingswellness.com and mostly on my Instagram page, which is at rootswingswellness.
Super. I'll make sure to have the links in the show notes. And I loved this conversation, Samantha, because it reminds us that patience and mindfulness, they're not just those lofty. ideals for monks on mountaintops, but they're really something very intrinsic, very practical, gritty, everyday skills that we can have, that we all have. So thank you. Thank you so much for guiding us to reignite that passion, to have that clarity um, on mindfulness and patience with the beautiful insights and experiences.
Thank you so much. I hope you have the best day.
Yeah. Well, listeners, if there's one thing to carry with you today, it's this: slowing down doesn't mean you are falling behind. It means you are moving at the speed that allows you to truly live. And thank you so much to everyone for tuning into this episode on the Mindful Living podcast. Until next time, may you meet each moment with presence and each challenge with the quiet strength of patience. And don't forget to follow Samantha and her work on Root Swings Wellness. I'll have all the links in the show notes for you. With this, we conclude this episode of the Mindful Living. Thank you.